Well, what's up, y'all? As y'all know, I've basically decided to tap into myself and start making videos in association to existence, experience, and anything else that we could find there in connection to something that could be useful for us in this moment, if not just for entertainment, then even more. So we can educate ourselves and help us maintain on top of what it is that we should be on top of, as that is in existence. And so last night, I had a little bit of trouble sleeping. I necessarily wouldn't say that I got to bed immediately, though I attempted. Um, Essentially, what it was that happened was, I had a little bit of brainstorming, basically occurring. So I took the moment, and I didn't run from it. I let it kind of just happen. And I seen what it was that all this, you know, um, information coming at me, was essentially pushing me to gather, upon, it's elaborating what it is that it needed to elaborate upon. So, yeah, I'm gonna basically play this video or this recording for you, and we're gonna talk about it. We'll break some stuff down. We might pause it along the way, but for the most part, I'm gonna try my best to just let it play through and through, so that way you guys can get the message. All right. So, let me see. We'll begin now.
So right now, I was analyzing something, and it was possible phrasing or wording that must be utilized when creating self-perception or a perception. Possible wording that must be utilized when creating self-perception or a perception that expands from within. So one method I was perceiving would be absorption. You absorb life, or a lifestyle. So, for instance, those who are born into poverty, for instance, versus those who are born into a middle class versus those who are born into a higher class. So now let's break it down and see what is really their invariance. So for the poverty stricken one, usually there's a tendency for there to be beneficial benefits there, though, that are misconstrued and constructed for the perception to see and perceive them, usually in a way where if they're tuned into be for immediate gratification, they're more impulsive, then more likely to overly have a consistency in not just perception, possibly for overlooking what is in direct correlation to either increasing an experience, assisting an experience, or rather more being to account for being a variable that has thus to some extent of a level of influence. Um, so with that absorption, perception, drawing one's living basically through these means of conditioning, in other words. So, um, let's see, and that would be based on. Okay, so basically, narrating has a two-side effect. For one, it helps you see variables, it helps you draw things and toughen up circumstances. It's like saying you're gonna get toughened up and instead of punching, say, a bucket of water, you might get a bucket of rice, and so you gradually, you know, vary what it is that you are making contact with. Thus, it is, as they say, building a tougher skin, a tougher shell, a tougher outer perimeter or boundary. So for those in poverty, usually you don't have the necessity to say things are good as constant, which means you're able to find yourself subliminally, subconsciously holding a level of contentment and satisfaction in knowing that the things that you've been through have built you up to develop a certain strength that mostly in to the benefit mostly that you yourself are aware of, and sometimes that is more at a will, or as some would say, take the moment to smell of flowers, essentially meaning that, taking into account what it is and how it is, and in those specific details that you yourself are able then to see the, how do you say, uniqueness the moment is to you, for you, and in your own development is primarily been for that benefit, uniqueness. So being that, you then see yourself as that one of a kind, something that cannot be measured or compared to anything else, because it's of its own making, essentially. So that'll be the poverty stricken one. The middle class, they're more the people that need to be motivated. The poverty stricken ones, those have to do what they do. They know that what is in direct correlation to whether they survive is going to be the immediateness. So they live more immediately, looking for immediate gratification impulsively, because again, they know that it's that immediate action that it's actually going to keep them alive. So they're essentially given, to that extent. Now, the middle class, being that they can navigate, seeing both sides of a perspective, not only what they're able to reach or achieve with simple factor of what it is to set the plans for, put the plans into action, and thus, until you've amounted and reached your outcome. So that'd be middle class. There be that tendency there again to basically teeter totter, pivot, between driven by impulse to immediately maintain your moment, or taking chances, thus accumulating different levels of stress because you might, be doing something in a different manner. Where poverty stricken is just meeting the quota, just the basic necessities of life, just to get by and just to manage, and then does be able to create their own story with their own words. The modern or middle class would then be essentially doing something of the same, but in their own variants. And again, being driven by that necessity of wanting to do the very minimum, which is what the lower class would be doing. The middle class then does seeing also what they could do in the maximum output and being more of the high class. So then there would be that tendency there to see the difference and and basically know in the long run, the short run, comparing those who might be living in the short run, a long run life versus those who might be in the long run living a short run life, and those are just again depending on those impulses and what it is that you lean to be that satisfies those impulses, whether it tends to be something that is free to you to give yourself, thus freeing you mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, or whether it's something that you condition yourself to think that you have to pay for to experience. So instead of being a run, some sit ups, reading a book, simple, lunges or crunches, or, just, hops in one place like a kangaroo, practicing being animals, or whatever it is that tends to allow you to, release those chemicals or chemical makeup in your body from movement that brings it to find itself uh, pretty much to some extent where it should be doing what it should be doing, and it just needs you to be aware of that as well. It's like the body has a mind of its own and needs to go through that, conditioning that it knows it has to maintain itself, and it depends on you knowing that aspect of yourself. So that becomes your job to find the right conditioning, that not only meets your conditions in what it is that you want an outcome mentally, but it physically allows for your body to see itself the way it needs to see itself as a machine, and not just some weak personality or identity that you thought or society thought or you've only been able to grasp yourself as being, and missing, and continuously mixing itself with another set of genetics, then thus to and been able to grasp yourself as being, and and missing the whole genetics traveling through time, and continuously mixing itself with another set of genetics, then thus to form a new expression of genetics that ultimately becomes your body, and that is expressed and given to you as something new to then be that is unique to you.
So essentially, from there, it basically becomes more the maintenance that we have to undergo as something that's expressing and existing, and knowing that it depends upon the impressions that it gives out through conditioning itself for preparation, in regard to those expressions and impressions that we seek, not just in ourselves but also to instill in others, so as to create proper structure and constructs that are more productive and progressive, rather than conflicting and filled with a lot of blank spots where there's more questions than there is answers, or really the direction of one's attention is just completely misconstrued, so it's possibly not even looking for anything when it should be moving, and at times moving when it should be looking for things. So the whole confusion aspect of oneself, and it's not confusion, because imagine this is another part of yourself that's expanded to show you an area where you're yet to take control. So all these points where you see yourself, it's something teasing you, telling you, ha 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 ha, this is me, this is you, I am already here, and I'm showing you and I'm teaching you, but you're not realizing it. You're too caught up in your own ideas, in your own beliefs, in your own perceptions, in your own perspectives. The tone that somebody may just deliver in an instant, or maybe the lack thereof. I mean, you feed on all of it. It's all meant to be conducive to action. If I'm a chemical makeup of everything that is for action, created to take action, then all the chemicals that are in me that might ever conflict with me, say cortisol, say stress, relevant components, chemical makeups, and so from not just that, but adrenaline. When we feel the adrenaline, look, that's one of the constant spikes of us. My excitement. I want to convey a message to you. I want to convey it with all that it should be conveyed with. So the necessity is for me to see how, yes, I can impulsively direct myself, and then I can be more impulsive in every aspect of what is impulse, and thus convey to you through impulse, and thus tell you still one thing versus I'm trying to I can't even wrap my head around the words that I even want to spit out, so it just all clashes, and that's the moment sometimes where we get pushed into situations where it calls for discipline. Here you are, feeling sporadic, feeling not willing to move, not willing to take the action, but all the chemicals in you are to, you got to release them. You got to be able to do the free stuff that takes just a bit of well, we have to put the entertainment aside and say, okay, I'm not gonna look to enjoy or seek to entertain anyone through this, but I'm gonna carry myself through it, and essentially it's like you go and run. You're gonna go for a run, and this run is gonna ask you to not only overlook what state of mind you have, also how you feel, and to seat yourself in your seat of conscience, because this is what a runner does. A runner seats himself in their seat of conscience and just wills their body forward. Just like I'm talking, just like I'm walking, except I'm running, and all that spent energy in talking is being conserved and basically refunneled and redirected to the run. And in that run, I have to remember my life is going to want to follow me, my responsibilities, my priorities, my obligations. For that moment, I have to be able to let myself go in that way and still feel safe. I have to push myself into a state of, if I'm not trained for it, then it's more just fear, which is false evidence appearing real. You're trying to worry about things or consider things which are in the areas of what may be, because priorities, responsibilities, and obligations, they add up, So it takes sometimes two hands to get busy and do what it takes to be done. And other times, knowing how those two hands, without even being moved, take care of it all as well. And measuring that distance, seeing that I'm that space in between. That's where I find that person of myself that needs to be able to meet a moment with what is required. by either putting myself aside or being able to pick the right part of myself up in that moment to provide and serve what is progressive, what is amplifying to growth, and not just the self, but in more ways, in all those ways that we can ripple and have a ripple effect that just, so become like a cup at the top, pouring down onto every other cup. If one cup's being overfilled, this is essentially the structure we work, continuously to make work what is, the structure, dynamics of what's hierarchy. The guy at the top gets all the pouring down on him, and it rains down onto all of us. So it's like we're here having to face ourselves, encounter ourselves, and then also redirect ourselves in the way we perceive ourselves, because we've carried ourselves so long that, hey, it's been all along. So this is how long, we're going to carry on till we get to where we got to get to. But essentially, I'm going to let you guys get back to the rest of this video because it's actually very good. All right, here we go.
So that'd be middle class. Variables between that and poverty-stricken lifestyles, and then the higher class. Guess there we tend to always think of it as being yeses and nos, but it's more of a there is no limitations. It's being without knowing no. It's experiencing not only the kingdom but all the support of the kingdom, because as a let's just say kingdom citizen, well, you know that everything in the kingdom should be supporting to everybody in the kingdom. That's how the kingdom keeps its face, not just head high, but pretty much essentially being that it's what it is that needs to be seen in it. So it's more of a you learn that basically everything in moderation, so not only being wealthy, how much time you spend doing things, and what it is that you want in those things to be that you are seeing and allowing yourself to see. You become more problem free, stress free, worry free, and not even so interested in doing things because you could do anything. So it's more of a exercising. You instead of being impulsive, you go to being almost the complete opposite of it. Rather than impulsive, you have to be extremely disciplined, and everything must display a certain level of discipline, especially because, again, it's like saying I'm superhuman strength and I could punch one punch into the earth and destroy it in half. And all the time, instead of you doing that, you're showing restraint. You're the super wealthy, super rich, and compare that one punch to a freaking nuclear bomb or some crazy shit like that, hydrogen bomb. I mean, that's essentially what the wealth is, what the rich is, what that class is. Constant display of discipline. I could also tell you all the things that I have access to, all the things that are in the future, all the things that we foresee, all the things that helped us foresee this for. I mean, that's what wealth brings you if you're in those, categories of areas. And all it does is really just give you access to your own DNA, because you understand that it's all within you. You've been in this experience, it's been within your capacity of light that your DNA has been capturing. And this light has been transcending not only in DNA, but also in the experience consistently being fed to me, being that it's the same one essentially that it's been since the beginning, even though I myself or the DNA itself has changed within that. That's the factor of evolution, we could say, happening right before we ourselves even begin to realize that before we got here. That's exactly what it was. Two things combining, recombining, and then that new combination expressed. You evolved essentially. Two human beings became one, and a new human being came from those two human beings becoming one. And that one, you're the expression of what that one being having became one is. And yeah, so
And that pretty much covers that. So hopefully again you guys enjoyed that video. Hopefully it was mind-boggling, entertaining, and able to fill your moment with things to ponder on, or at least fill your mind with, so you're not over there just kind of stressing, not knowing how to juggle things or ideas or beliefs. What I like to always think of is just a constant portal entry. This is the way I like to factor in things. And think about it like this: picture a word, that word entering your ear, and then from that ear, entering into let's just say a transmission form that then looks for the next portal to enter, that then does becomes from a sound to a visual perception of some concept or something that has basically tied itself with those words to essentially show itself. So you kind of start perceiving these portals, but instead of doing this, it's like seeing one TV, and then you look in that TV, you see another TV, and then that TV shows you another TV, and that has another TV. So you would do that essentially, but in thought, and practice continuously, just expanding your mind to the complete universe, and then finding a new universe, digging your way into that one, and then through that, just keep going and going and going, ultimately until crazy is not a thing no more, until whoever wants a piece of your mind basically has a full cake. They want their cake and they want to eat it too, so you can be that privilege to somebody. I hope you guys enjoy yourselves today. Have a wonderful day, and I enjoyed making this video for y'all. See you next time.